So this week I'm talking to Claire Ball, and Claire is from the Self Love Initiative CIC. So welcome, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on, Kate.
Yeah, no worries. So tell me a little bit about your social enterprise. What is it? What does it do?
So the Self-Love Initiative is a CIC that's set up to empower women to learn to love themselves a little bit more, be more self-confident, and from that, use that power to harness the power of self-love and to be more successful, have more content lives. It can really take any shape that it wants for a woman, but ultimately it's about empowering women. The ultimate aim of it all at the end, hopefully when there's loads of profits, and I've got that coming in, is to pay for counselling sessions for victims of sexual assault. That's me ultimate
Okay,
goal.
amazing.
Um, but we're all about women. That's me passion.
Okay, so what are the services or the product services? What is it that people can access in order to love themselves better through your support?
Yeah. So I'm a counsellor, so we do counselling sessions. So they're paid for counselling sessions. And that can be for any range of issues because I think sometimes like we think it's a certain thing, but often it's not. It's other things going on. Um, but my real sort of proud things that have been created this year, I think, is the confidence cafes that we've
Mhm.
run. So we started them in August, and hopefully this year it's going to be a regular thing. I'm just confirming some dates and things. And the confidence cafes were set up because my past history is I used to run Slimming World groups, and as much as I'm well out of diet culture now, you would never find me anywhere near a set of scales anymore. What I remember from that time and what I remember from the people is that the reason people kept coming back is because they wanted that community. It really
Mhm.
wasn't always about the weight loss. In fact, it very rarely was. Anyone that's been to it will know that what you go for is meeting the people that you meet every week. And I wanted to create a similar space, but to talk about self-love, self-confidence, and things like that. So I thought about the idea of like a coffee morning, and that's where it spanned from. So you just come along, it's 2 hours, it's free tea and coffee, there's cake there and biscuits and things. Kids can come, there's place for kids to play often, and you just sit and chat to like-minded women. And every time I've done one, I've thought, oh my God, like nobody's going to speak. And I mean, I can talk for 2 hours, as you can probably tell. I love the sound of my own voice. So I can't, and I say that at the start of every cafe, like I will and can talk, but it'd be much better if you do. And actually,
Mhm.
everyone always has. And the range of things that's come out of that has been amazing. Like for everything from driving to body image to clothing to everything. I had a Christmas one, and yeah, so they're amazing. So that's my big thing that I love most. And it's low cost, it's only £3. And we also
Mhm.
have like paid forward sessions and things. So even if people cannot afford that, it's accessible to everyone. And then I do workshops, so I do online and in-person workshops. We've been working around inner critic last year, but the focus for the
Mhm.
first part of the year is self-compassion. And then I do self-love one-to-ones as well, which is a bit of a higher price ticket. But that's for people that really want to focus on their self-love, self-worth journey. And I can help them more one-to-one with that as well. So I
That's
think that's
so
everything.
interesting. And
Yeah.
and it's so specific what you're talking about there, because I know that we talk a lot about health and well-being and that kind of stuff, but you're really honing in there on self-love. So I'm wondering what's behind that, because from a counselling background, it sounds like there's potentially something interesting that led you to that.
Yeah, it was my journey. It was entirely my journey. So like I say, I worked for Slimming World for a number of years. Well, for 4 years, I worked for them. I've been a member for 10. And in 2017, my life changed massively. I went through a really big personal issue, and it completely knocked us off track. I didn't know where to turn. I lost my job. I left my job for me mental health, and um but I lost like a path that I thought I was going to be on. I hated who I was. I never really ever loved who I was when I look back now, which makes us really sad. And then in 2019, I was still going as a member, even though I wasn't working for them. And I just realized that like there was women that I was following on Instagram who looked amazing, and I didn't understand why they looked amazing and I didn't, because we looked the same. And I realized it was because they were confident. And after a couple of months, I realized that I couldn't do that whilst also getting weighed, because those scales for me hold so much power over my mood. Still do, 6 years on, it is this year. And I went on my own journey of self-love, and part of that was training to be a counselor, which I never would have been able to do, setting up my private practice and things like that. And then from that, I just realized that actually the one thing I've always wanted in life, no matter what job I've done, is to help people,
Hmm.
and particularly help women, because there's people out there that feel the way that I did, and I know there's so many of them because I used to work with them. I want to pull them all out of that cycle and get them all loving themselves, which is difficult in a world that doesn't want us to love ourselves, that doesn't want us to look the way that we look. I think one thing I'm really passionate about is body image.
Hmm.
So I'm a fat counsellor. I advertise myself as such, and I'm proud to be fat. It doesn't bother me, that word, anymore. And I want to help the world. I want to help people realize that they don't need to shrink to fit in the world. It's the world's problem, not ours, that things don't fit for our body. So there's kind of like a double-edged sword. However, the work with the self-love initiative has brought us to see that it's not all about weight loss. There's a lot of women that I work
Hmm.
with that aren't in bigger bodies, whose confidence also is very low. So that's been a really big eye opener, but really interesting. And I've loved working with all types of women. So yeah, I love it.
Amazing.
It's been my journey that's done that.
That's so interesting. And so many people that set up social ventures, I think it comes from that kind of that personal
Yeah.
experience that then you want to share with other people. I wonder then, as a social entrepreneur, how has your journey been through this? How are you finding it? Are you confident as a kick, or how are you
Nope.
feeling?
Well, I think it's been interesting. So I've had the business. I've ran as a counsellor for 3.5 years now, I think it is. And earlier last year, God, the time's flying. Earlier last year, I started to think about like what I was going to do next and the ideas that I had. And it was all very quick for me. So I wanted to do a program that was a funded program. You have to pay for it. Didn't have the funding, and I found out there was some funding available. And the people doing it said, "But you need to set up as a kick." And I went, "Okay, that'll be fine. I want to help people. That doesn't sound like a hard thing to do." How wrong I was. It's not, and you know what? It's not difficult to do. I think what's important and what I'm learning, because I'm doing the level 2 social enterprise course as well, is that you need to know your plan. You need to have the structure behind you, even just a little bit. It doesn't need to be in deal,
Mhm.
but just a little bit to go forward. And I think it's not been easy, and I have had some ups and downs, and I have questioned whether being a kick is the right thing for me. I think ultimately what I know is that I want to help people, and I want to help them in any way I can. And actually, I heard something on one of the bits of the course which has stuck with me. And it was one of the ladies saying every business should be a social enterprise.
Mhm.
And that stuck in my mind because I think that's what I want. I want to be able to, I love giving stuff to people for free. It's probably my downside. My granddad was a plumber and never made loads of money because my grandma said he used to just do things for free. And I think I get that from him. Like you would go and see people in the middle of the night to change a washer on the in the
Okay.
pipes and then come back and be like, "Oh, I didn't charge her." Like whereas someone else would have charged like 500 quid or whatever. So I'm the same. Like I want to give stuff for free. So like for me, it's just a no-brainer to be
Mhm.
like, actually, you can't afford it. That's all right. I'll come and I'll give my time. And I know you have to have a balance in a business at the end of the day, um, but I think, yeah, I know that I want to be a social enterprise and I want to help people. It's just figuring out that legal structure. So it's
Yeah.
been difficult, but what I've found is there is so much help out there and so many amazing people like you guys and lots of people that I work a lot with the Northern Lass Lounge and things like that, where people just are there and go, "What do you need? Let's bounce off you," and that really helps as well. So I know I'll be all right, whatever
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the legal structure thing is it can be such a stumbling block for people. I think quite often you find that people go to the two extremes. So the one extreme is exactly what happened to you, which is like, oh, well, that kind of sounds good. Yep, doing it, decided that that's the legal structure, and then you're away.
Yeah,
And then you're kind of going, oh, hang on a minute, I didn't know there were all those other options as well. Is this definitely the right vehicle? Or other people that spend forever trying to understand the huge complexities around different legal structures that they never get off the starting line. So I don't think there is a perfect way of picking your legal
No.
structure. And I mean, even me, so Junction Point, I set up as a sole trader because I was just doing consultancy to start off with, so it worked. We then went for some contracts, so I set up as a limited by shares company, which worked. But then I realized, like your plumber granddad, or dad, sorry, I can't remember, was it dad,
My
granddad?
granddad,
I
yeah,
don't,
my
yeah,
granddad.
yeah. I just was running as a social enterprise. There weren't any profits being sort of pulled out. So I just thought, well, I'm working with the sector. I'd much rather be part of the sector. So that was when I
Hmm.
transitioned to being a company limited by guarantee as a kick. So that's three structures that I went through to find the one that now works for
Yeah,
me. So I would say don't let it like knock your confidence or anything. I think that you've
yeah,
absolutely got the core of this is what I want to do and this is the stuff that I want to do around it. And now it's like going shopping for a vehicle. Which vehicle is going to help you get
yeah,
there and be the most efficient and cost effective and all of that kind of stuff? It's nuts and bolts. I think what you've got, that passion and the amazing stuff that you're offering, I think whatever legal structure you pick, you're still going to have an amazing impact. It's now
yeah,
just refining that. Um,
yeah.
so along the way, I'm wondering, have you come across any kind of real light bulb moments that you could share with our listeners, or any words of wisdom for people that are starting their journey?
I think in terms of words of wisdom, or like, well, I suppose the both tie in is like keeping it, keeping that hold of what you want to achieve, that ultimate goal. Like we talk about it a lot on the course, but I think it makes me remember like what is it that I want to achieve, and what's my big goal. So my big goal, I think, is to have every woman to love themselves even a little bit. Or actually, my big goal is to have every woman not hate themselves,
Hmm.
because that's a really neutral place to be. Loving themselves would be great, but if we can just get them to not hate themselves, that would be great also. My side goal is to bring down diet culture, but that's a pie in the sky goal one day. Not one that I'm working towards on a date. Well, I'm trying one bit by bit, but one woman at a time. But I think coming back to that, if you just keep coming back to your why, and like you said, I think, okay, with everybody that I've met who works in a social enterprise, or runs a social enterprise, it comes from they've seen a problem and they want to fix it. And I remember when I had my first interview for that funding, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and I just kind of came up with this idea of like, oh, let's do counselling for victims of sexual assault. And it's a cause close to my heart, and I really feel passionate about it. And then I was like, and I think he asked the question like something like, why women, why, why that? And I so then I was a bit thrown, and I was like, oh well, I mean, I could work with men. And he was like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
like just pick your one
Hmm.
corner that you can fix, pick your one thing that you can work on, and run with it.
Hmm.
Because I absolutely could be like, I could help children, I could help this, I could work with men for advocacy. There's lots of things, but actually, all I'm doing then is just spreading myself thin, and I need to gather in together and go. It's like a one boulder after one thing, and once that thing's down, then I've got another boulder I can go after that. So I think don't feel like you need to fix the world's problems is one, but on the other hand, don't feel like your one thing is not enough, because I think knowing you're part of a small part of a big issue,
Hmm.
it really matters. It's like if everybody chips a tiny bit away at a rock, eventually it will fall, won't it?
Hmm.
One, I guess the analogy is one Jenga brick. If you take one Jenga brick out, it's not going to fall. But if
Yeah.
everybody takes one Jenga brick out, it will fall.
Hmm.
So just take your one Jenga brick, whatever that looks like. So I think that's probably me my biggest advice is, and also ask for help. Like don't be afraid to ask, like be emotional. I think one thing I've noticed in people that I know that run private businesses compared to social enterprise is we can really feel it in our hearts. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying they don't, but I think often if you look at people like, God, I hate them saying these names like Alan Sugar and stuff like that. They're
Yeah.
not sat crying to their friends that this
Yeah.
hasn't
Yeah.
worked. But I think
Yeah.
maybe that's because they just have a business mindset of like, what is my profit? What is my goal? What is my this? Whereas we don't think that. We like, oh my God, like why is this not working? But I think that's what makes us unique. Like I'm not afraid of emotions. I'll if I don't cry one week, there's something weird going on. Like it's my magic power.
Yeah,
But yeah, just be yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help and remember your why. What's your Jenga block and stick with it
I love
would
that. I
be my
love that
advice.
analogy of the Jenga block. And it's kind of
Yeah.
where I come from with Junction Point is that I think when I was thinking of, yeah, my next steps at one point in time, I couldn't pick because there was so much wrong with the world as to where I was going to put my hat.
Yeah.
You know, is it the environment? Is it women's health? Is it children? Like, oh my goodness, there's so many things that need to be fixed. And then reflecting on what it was that I could do. I love working behind those people because then I get to see so many of the Jenga blocks, as you say.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, there really are so many people out there in terms of systematic change. We all absolutely need to do our little bit. So I love that.
Or like they're telling us what. So we're like saying, I want to remove that Jenga block, but I don't know how. And
Mhm.
you're saying, right, well, if you just adjust it to the side, if you use that like
Yeah, yeah,
method or
that's it.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your structure in the Jenga block thing. But then I
Mm.
suppose you're then part of a bigger Jenga game, like for want of a better word.
Oh,
So like,
crikey.
yeah, I think it's yeah, just to put the pressure on.
Yeah, yeah. So, Claire, I mean, you've got the audience now. You've got everyone listening to you about the amazing stuff that you do. We all want to support each other on our journeys, removing these Jenga blocks. So, what is it that we can do to support you and your organization? Can we be making referrals in? Can we be buying things from you, promoting things? Like, what's the action that we can do to support you?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything really. I mean, it's difficult. One thing I get told a lot, and I know like with the Changemakers group, it's not just women. And I get a lot of people going, oh, well, it's just women. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it is. But if there is men out there as well, they can still share what I do. Like women need male advocates. And if you're going to stand and shout that women should be more confident, you'll help that. That's amazing. I'm never going to say no to that. In terms of women, they can come and join my Facebook group, which is the Self Love Initiative community, where I share a lot of stuff about how to be self confident free of charge. And it's there, it's just me. Um, and come along to a workshop, come along to a confidence cafe. That would be amazing. I really want to make them massive this year. And I also have some products on my website. So I sell pin badges, key rings, and the point of them is to get the word out about the revolution of self-love. That's my plan, is to cause a revolution. And I've also created self-love reward charts for adults. So you can go on, you pick your tasks for the week, you get gold stars, you get it all sent to you, and it's your way of rewarding yourself for the very basic things that I think we forget about and that we don't pay attention to on a weekly basis. So they're all available on my website as well.
Amazing. Well, that all sounds great. And we'll be sure to add all of the links and all that kind of stuff so that
Thank
people
you.
can find you. But that's the end of our interview. So thank you ever so much, Claire. And
You're
yeah, I'll
welcome.
be checking out your confidence cafes for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kate, and thanks for having us on.
All right.